So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our public celebration of Swami Vivekananda's birthday. The program this morning will commence with some Vedic chanting by the Sri Sarada nuns. That will be followed by a panel discussion exploring the theme, Turning Points, Swami Vivekananda's teachings and their impact on my life. That'll be followed by a talk and PowerPoint presentation by Pravrajika Alokaprana, who we're very honored to have visiting us again from Kolkata. She'll be talking about or relating Vedanta to the idea of service. Work is worship, as we say. And then you're all invited to stay back for lunch. So now I will request the nuns to come up and chant.
We will be chanting the Narayana Sukta. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us both together. May he nourish us both together. May we both work together with great energy. May our study be vigorous and effective. May we not hate each other. May peace, physical, mental, and spiritual, be on us forever. Om Sahasrashirisham Devam Vishwaksham Vishwashambhuvam Vishwam Narayanam Devamaksharam Paramam Padam Vishwata Paramanityam Vishwam Narayanagum Harim Vishwamevedam Purushastad Vishwamupajivati Patim Vishwasyatmeshwaragum Shashwatagum Shivamachyutam Narayanam Mahajneyam Vishwatmanam Parayanam. This universe is truly the divine person only. Therefore, it subsists on him, the self-effulgent divine being, who has many heads and many eyes, who is the producer of joy for the universe, who is the master and the cause of humanity, whose forms are the various gods, who is imperishable, who is the all-surpassing ruler and savior, who is superior to the world, who is endless and omniform, who is the goal of humanity, who is the destroyer of sin and ignorance, who is the protector of the universe and the ruler of individual souls, who is permanent, supremely auspicious, and unchanging, who has embodied himself in man as his support, being the indwelling spirit, who is supremely worthy of being known by the creatures, who is embodied in the universe, and who is the supreme goal. Narayana Paro Jyotiratma Narayana Paraha Narayana Param Brahma Tattvam Narayana Paraha Narayana Paro Dhyata Dhyanam Narayana Paraha. Narayana is a supreme light described in the Upanishads. Narayana is a supreme reality designated as Brahman. Narayana is the highest self. Narayana is the infinite self. Narayana is the most excellent meditator and meditation. यच्च किञ्चिज्जगत् सर्वं दृश्यते श्रूयतेऽपि वा अन्तर्बहिश्च तत्सर्वं व्याप्य नारायणस्थितः. Whatsoever there is in this world, known through perception because of their proximity, or known through report because of their distance, all that is pervaded by Narayana within and without. Anandamavyayam kavigum samudrendam vishwashambhuvam padmakosha pratikashagum hridayam chapyadhomukham. One should meditate upon the Supreme, the limitless, unchanging, all-knowing cause of the happiness of the world, dwelling in the sea of one's own heart as the goal of all striving. The place for his meditation is the ether in the heart which is comparable to an inverted lotus bud. Adho nishtya vitasyante nabhyamupari tishtati jwalamalakulam bhati vishwasyayatanam mahat. It should be known that the heart, which is located just at the distance of a finger span below the Adam's apple and above the navel, is the great abode of the universe. Sandadagum shilabhistu lambatya kosha sannibham tasyante sushiragum sukshmam tasmin sarvam pratishtitam. Like the bud of a lotus in an inverted position hangs the heart, surrounded by arteries. In it there is a narrow space, or near it there is a narrow space called Sushumna. In it everything is supported. Tasya madhye mahanagnir vishwarchir vishvato mukhaha Sograbhu vibhajantishtannaharamajarak kavihi tiryagurdhamadhasyayi rashmayastasya santataha sandapayati swam dehamapadatalamastakaha tasya madhye vannishikha Aniyordhva vyavastitaha Nilato yadamadhyastat vidyullekhe vabhaswara Nivarashokavattvanvi pitabhasvatyanupama. In the middle of that narrow space of the heart or Sushumna remains the undecaying, all-knowing, omni-faced great fire, which has flames on every side, which enjoys the food presented before it, which remains assimilating the food consumed, the rays of which spread, scattering themselves vertically and horizontally, and which warms its own body from the insole to the crown. In the center of that fire, which permeates the whole body, there abides a tongue of fire, of the color of shining gold, which is the topmost among the subtle, which is dazzling like the flash of a lightning that appears in the middle of a rain-bearing cloud, which is as slender as the awn of a paddy grain, and which serves as a comparison to illustrate subtlety. Tasya shikhaya madhye Paramatma vyavasthitaha Sabrahma Sashiva Sahari Sendra Sokshara Paramaswarat. Paramatman dwells in the middle of that flame. Although he is thus limited, still he is the four-faced creator, Shiva, Vishnu, Indra, the material and efficient cause of the universe, and the supreme, self-luminous, pure consciousness. Ritam Satyam Param Brahma Purusham Krishna Pingalam Urdhvaretam Virupaksham Vishwarupaya Vai Namo Namaha. Supreme Brahman, the absolute reality, has become an androgynous person in the form of Uma Maheshwara, dark blue and reddish brown in hue, absolutely chaste and possessing uncommon eyes. Salutations to him who alone is the soul of the universe. Om Narayanaaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sad. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. May we know Narayana. For that, may we meditate on Vasudeva. May Vishnu impel us towards it. Om, peace, peace, peace.
We'll now have the panel session. Just give us a few moments to get set up for that. So I'll invite the panelists to come up and join me on the stage. So as announced, the theme we're going to explore is turning points, Swami Vivekananda's teachings and their impact on my life. And the panelists are on my left, Dr. Arushi Singh. Quick summary, she's a doctor who lives and works in Newcastle. She's worked mainly in general and trauma surgery, and she's now transitioning to general practice. And as she says here, she comes from a family of devotees, I mean, really great devotees. She's grown up with the Vedanta Society and had much contact with the nuns. She mentions that what she'll be talking about is Swamiji's message of facing situations with courage and having faith in yourself. And thinking about that, my goodness, that's been called on her during the COVID pandemic. As a young doctor, I think you call it a trial by fire into the profession, what Arushi has had to face in recent years. Next to Arushi, we have Dr. Vivek Thakkar. Again, he's someone who's grown up with the Vedanta Society. He attended the children's class. He's been coming along since the age of 7. He's a rheumatologist working in Southwest Sydney and also at Macquarie University. where he's the deputy lead of stage 2 of the medical program. And Vedanta has always played a key role in his life. And we look forward to hearing about the impact of Swami Vivekananda on his life. And third member of the panel, we have Fred Schnerring. Fred's been coming along for our talks for many years now. He's on our committee, management committee. He's a traffic and road safety engineer and forensic engineer, specializing in accident reconstruction. And he finds the parallels between Vedanta and science of particular interest, and helping with the search for the meaning to quote Douglas Adams, if you know about him, the life, the universe, and everything. So that's the panel. Now I've just got a few introductory comments before I call on the panelists to share. So looking back over our lives, we can all identify some key event, some key person, some ideas that we've come across, some experience we might have had, some book that we've read, even some movie that we've watched. Any one or more of these things could have touched us profoundly in a positive way. If we all look back, we'll find some key moments like that, where such experience has expanded our outlook, it's deepened our understanding of life, it's inspired us, and maybe it's sparked a turning point in our lives. We know from the reminiscences of those who met Swami Vivekananda that he was a turning point in their lives. As Swami Nikhilananda observed about Vivekananda, he said, you know, people who saw him once never forgot him. And that's something the Swami experienced in a chance meeting during a holiday. Swami Nikhilananda was out walking when a young American man, a sailor, approached him and showed the Swami his wallet. His name was printed there, and it showed that his first name was Ceylon, you know, the previous name of Sri Lanka. And he explained that his father was also a sailor, had served some time in Ceylon. He loved the country so much that he decided to name his son after the country. Then the sailor went on to say that he didn't know much about Indian things. Of course, he was attracted to the Swami in the first place. He could see that the Swami was from India. So he said he doesn't know much about Indian things, but that his wife knows more. And so he brought her over. She had read Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga and some other books. And she came over and had some discussion with the Swami. And then she said, you should meet my mother-in-law, because my mother-in-law had met Swami Vivekananda. So, my goodness, it turns out the mother-in-law was nearby. They brought her over to meet the Swami. She was, at that time, she was a bright, as the Swami describes her, a very bright-eyed lady of over 80. And she told the Swami how when she was 16, her mother took her to one of the Swami's lectures at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893. And of great interest for her, really, what was even more significant was they were seated in the front row. And she clearly remembered the Swami striding back and forth on the platform. And every now and again, he would approach the audience when he was leading up to the concluding of a point and giving the final emphasis on that point. And what he would do each time was he'd come up close to her and look into her face. So you can imagine what kind of impact. She's getting the full impact of his power. So needless to say, after that, this experience prompted her, I mean, she was a devout Christian, but it prompted her to think very deeply about religion and about her religious life. She later read the Swami's book on Raja Yoga, And she says everything fell into place for her. So as we can imagine, Swami Nikhilananda was overjoyed to meet such an interesting person. And then he was even happier when he found she lived in Brooklyn, in New York, and not far from the Vedanta Center, where the Swami gave regular lectures, where he was in charge. But then, so then naturally he informed her about his lectures, and he invited her, you must come along and hear my talks. And then he describes the old lady looked at him with burning eyes and said, no doubt to the Swami's bemusement and chagrin, she said, do you think anyone who has heard Swami Vivekananda needs to go to anyone else? So the poor Swami. Now, just to conclude, to be fair to Swami Nikhilananda, he wasn't just anyone else. He was a disciple of Holy Mother. He's a standout Swami in the history of the Ramakrishna order. He founded the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center in New York in 1933 and served as its president until his passing in 1973. He was a brilliant writer and speaker, and he was known to many of the leading figures in New York at that time. Visitors and friends to the center included no less than U Thant, the Secretary General of the United Nations. He was counted as a dear friend. There was Chester Carlson, the inventor of Xerox, or in other words, one of the key inventors of photocopying. He was a regular. Then you had US President Woodrow Wilson's daughter, Margaret, was coming along and helped him in translating the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna into English from the Bengali. And then there were famous academics at the time like Joseph Campbell. So all these luminaries were good friends of the Swami. So anyway, with that, I will now invite the panel to share their thoughts on the fee. What we will do is we can pass this microphone around so you can all be heard. Over to you. Arushi, you can launch us.
I sat in the wrong position.
You're closest to me, so you're going first.
My sincerest salutations to my dearest Matajis and my namaste to all. Swami Vivekananda, see, I'm too young to have had major turning points or major experiences in my life, but I can say Swami Vivekananda, Swamiji has had a profound impact in my life. And Swami Vivekananda, Swamiji has many, many qualities, many tremendous skills and attributes. But what really stood out to me from a very young age was his courage, was his bravery, was his fearlessness. And there are examples of that, even when Swamiji was of a very young age. The famous example of him, whenever he'd see a wandering holy person, and they would beg alms and rely on the charity of the society of those times. And whenever Swamiji would see some of them, this young child, he just felt compelled he had to give something to them. And this is a quality of Swamiji that I've noticed, that once he had put his mind, once he had decided on what the correct action was, whatever the correct course of action was, he would do it. Like the Nike slogan, he just did it. And without hesitation, and no matter what the consequence would be to him. So in this case, he would get locked up in a room because he kept giving things to these wandering holy people. But even then, if there was a window and he would see them passing, he would grab whatever he could, because he just felt that he had to give them this, even if it was the cloth he was wearing, much to the anger of his parents, I imagine. There's that famous example of when Swamiji stood between a stampeding bull and a woman, even though others had fled. And this huge animal was bearing down on him. And he says in his own words that he was standing there calculating how far it was going to throw him. but you could not tell that from his appearance. He stood there, arms crossed and faced it down. And for me now at my age, what I find most striking is actually when he went overseas to America. To imagine someone who is barely 30 years old, and this young gentleman has realized that he needs to go to America. And once he decided on that, he was convinced that was what he had to do. And he got on this boat with the money that was raised and was presented to him for this idea. But can you imagine? He knew very little of America, only what he had probably heard from people or from his schooling and things like that. But he didn't know anyone there. He didn't know what the society would be like. He wasn't sure of what sort of reception he would face, what sort of food he would get. In fact, he didn't even have any lodging organized at the other end. And we saw that when Swamiji got there, he faced some hardships. In fact, one night he had nowhere to stay, and hungry, he fell asleep in an open wagon on the dockyards that night. And he just knew that he had to get to Chicago and he should try and speak at this Parliament of Religions. And that is enough to get us, any of us, give us palpitations. But Swamiji was just, his convictions were immense, and he was just so very brave. And look, I'm obviously haven't been on a panel before, and I don't know how much I should speak, but I was just going to mention that that's such a nice analogy for us youth of today, because we are absolutely, well, all of us really, we're all bombarded with things that we should really be worrying about, isn't it?
Well, look, if you don't mind me bringing this up, I hope it's not traumatic, but did you draw on what you've read and reflected on about Swami Vivekananda during the time when you were facing full-on the COVID pandemic?
Definitely. When I was working in the hospital and surgery, I was working as a general surgery registrar, but, elective surgery had been, slowed down by the government in the wake of the pandemic response. And so I opted to put my hand up and work in the ICU for a term. For 10 weeks. And during that term, this was in St. George Hospital. So we were in Southeast Sydney. And this was during Delta, but before we had the vaccine. So people were actually at high risk of dying. We didn't really know much about this disease. And very many people were scared to work in the ICU. I was living by myself. I was healthy. I had no one that I could potentially infect. And I had, really nothing else to do. So I put my hand up to work in there. But it was scary because you didn't know if you were going to catch the disease and what it would mean for you. And we didn't know about what the long-term effects of this would be. And we saw people passing away. They would come in and very suddenly they'd be overcome by this and pass away and things like that. And it's, yes, it was scary and it was overwhelming at certain times, but I'm not brave like Swamiji. I'm not to say I'm fearless.
I don't know. I think you are.
No, but I think you try and work past that fear. And Swamiji's teachings, they give you that that rationale to give you strength. So I try and remember that one, there's hardship, but there will always be hardship. I mean, Mum and I were watching an Attenborough documentary last night, and my goodness, what those poor little animals go through. We have no reason to complain. If all of nature is going through hardship, why aren't we? Secondly, firstly, hardship will always be there. And, that's what Swamiji says is the definition of life, isn't it? The unfoldment.
The unfoldment and development of a being under circumstances that tend to crush it down.
Yes, exactly. So that's just what life is. So you just have to accept it, that hardship is coming. And secondly, when it comes to face it and face the brutes, as Swamiji says, and he says, when you face the difficulty, it tends to fall away from you or lose its power. And just a quick analogy, I was watching a short video, I think it was on Instagram, where a lady who's a shark researcher was diving with the shark, and she made an educational video, and she showed that there was a huge looming shadow just in the mid picture of this video. Someone's filming and she's swimming right at the front of the video. And she says in a over voice, in a narration, she says, look what happens when I try and flee from the shark and I make a lot of splashing noises. So she started kicking her fins and making all sorts of splashing noises, and the shark started speeding up and started coming for her. And it was a massive 3-4 meter tiger shark coming straight on for her. And she said, and now look what happens if you turn around and face the tiger shark. You need to look it in the eyes, stand tall, and show it you also are a predator. And as soon as she did that, the shark sort of, you can see it sort of just slow down a bit. And she very calmly reaches out, grabs it by the top of its snout and sort of pushes its head away. And it just quietly goes on by. And it's a good analogy, isn't it? You face the difficulty, you show it that here I come, I'm ready to meet you. And so when I was in that situation, I remember that firstly, it is what it is. We are in a pandemic. Worrying and stressing about it will not change it. You just need to work your way through it because we're all in the same boat. And secondly, that face it. Let's see what this thing is. What is this Omicron? What is this Delta? What is this COVID? And thirdly, remember that it's all just a divine play. It's sad, people are dying, and I did feel compassion and empathy for them, but I tried to remember that we are all divine beings, as Swamiji says, with a circumference that is infinite and a center, the center point is within our hearts. We are divine beings having a human experience. And this is all of God's will, all of the Creator's will. We are their children. As awful as it might seem to us at the moment, whatever is happening has a purpose and has something to teach us. And we did. I think as a society, we learned a lot through the pandemic. So I tried to remember that. I tried to remember as I would walk to the work, I'd repeat the Om Brahma Pranam chant that the order does before we eat our meals, that, God is, correct me if I'm wrong, but God is the one who is performing the sacrifice. God is the constituents of the sacrifice. God is the fire of the sacrifice. What is being sacrificed is God. That who is receiving the sacrifice is God. It's all but God. So, if you take that high standpoint, it really helps with that detachment from such horrible scenarios.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Arushi. Thanks for not minding to share a bit about that difficult time. So maybe you pass to Vivek. Welcome, Vivek.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing about your thoughts.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate. I've grown up with Vedanta, as Robert mentioned, since the age of 7, and now I'm 44, so it gives you some years. And in that time, the importance of Swamiji's message has radiated right through. It become more accurate, more true in current years, where there's been some difficulties. But all along, I think the way Swami has always demonstrated strength, when you think back to the fact that he was only in his 30s when he was at the World Parliament of Religions, and yet he stood up and everyone took heed who was attending of what he was to say and how he said it, and how he brought people together. And sure, in such a parliament, you would expect people to have messages and things that were a little bit left field, and he recognized that. But in doing so, he also recognized the tremendous strength and willpower and humanity that we all need to demonstrate. And to think that he did that at an age where, I think I was working, but to go to the world's pinnacle, I suppose, as it was back then, we didn't have media like we do these days, but to go and to spread that message, and at the end of that time, for everyone to resonate that there was this Swami who touched us and who felt deeply and who saw the essence of what it was to be a man and to be God in this world. I think that was pretty special. So I think the Parliament of Religions for me is obviously where Swamiji came of age, brought Vedanta to of age, and it's a shame when you look back and you think, well, where have we come in the last 130 odd years since that time? You can see lots of good, but you can also see lots of ongoing struggle, and struggle that's forever part of what we are. So quite a remarkable character, to say the least.
Well, thanks, Vivek.
Thank you. Just like to point out, we have younger person, grew up with Vedanta, younger person, grew up with Vedanta, older person who didn't. So there's a contrast. I grew up in a sort of Christian background, the German Templars, who are a break away from the Lutheran Church, and it's a very strange bunch in some ways. But interestingly enough, they had German settlements in Palestine. So that's kind of topical when you think about it. So yeah, I grew up with that, and I forgot, it's stuck in the car somewhere, but there's a little leaflet that turned up in my letterbox, and it said, "Hell is real." And it describes hell. Hell is this place where there's this wailing and gnashing of teeth, and you shall be consigned forever to burn in hell unless you repent now. And Jesus is the only way. There is no other way. This is what I grew up with, that you are essentially a sinner, a bad person. I don't know what I did wrong, but I mean, well, there's plenty of things I did wrong, but but from the day I was born, what did I do wrong? So you're a bad person and you've got to repent, and there's only one way out, and you got to do it now. And you just go, well, it seems like something that has been designed to frighten little children. Maybe that was the point. So is there a distinct turning point? For me, there is. I mean, it's helped by divorce, but it's this book, if you like, What Religion Is, in the words of Swami Vivekananda. So that's a turning point. A couple of notes in here. One of the things that, given that I've just talked about, the Christian background, and there's only this, you've got to be Christian, you can't be anything else. So it's like, let us picture, we all know what bicycle wheels look like. They have lots of spokes, right? Now, there's a reason for that. It's because that actually gives the wheel some strength. Now, imagine you have a bicycle wheel that has one spoke. It's kind of useless. It's not going to go it'll go halfway around and it'll collapse. So there's got no strength. And if we can imagine that we're all on the rim and that we're all going towards the hub, trying to get realizations when you get to the hub. So we're all going along. So imagine if you've only got one spoke. We're all going to have to queue up and it take forever to get anywhere. And it's something that doesn't have any strength at all. Whereas if you've got multiple spokes, you've got multiple ways of getting there. And that's one of the things that comes up quite early on in this book, that there's the need for the multiplicity of religions. Swamiji said that he wished there was lots more religions, that there was a particular religion that suited every individual, so that you can follow a path. And you go, oh, well, that's rather refreshing. And the other thing is that to change the view of God. With the Abrahamic religions, it's that God is external. It's not that, like with Hindu, we sort of use that as it's a means to an end. But it's, as a child growing up with Christianity, that is it. God is out there somewhere, and he's judging you, looking down, and you've got to do all the right things, and then he might favor you with heaven. Otherwise, you're going to hell. Whereas what I get out of starting with this book is that God is everything. God is there. And for Gayatri Pranaji, as I have mentioned before, in my cat, which when I think about it, I'm serving the cat and going, well, hang on a minute. And Sri Ramakrishna did that. He fed the prasad to the temple cat. So yeah, so it's this. So if we see that we're all, God is everywhere, then you go, oh, you can start being kinder to animals. We can be kinder to each other. And if we accept that there's this multiplicity of religions, then imagine sort of, the Shiite and Sunni Muslims all fighting amongst each other, having wars over, you're not following the Muslim path the right way. Really. I mean, it's just nutty. So for me, that's the turning point, was that this book allowed me to see things in a way that I hadn't seen before. And it's a bit like, imagine a really hot day. We're going to have that later today. And then now imagine a waterfall with this cool, refreshing water cascading over the top, and you stand under that. For me, this is what that turning point was. I've got a place where I can stand on a waterfall and feel refreshed and uplifted. And the other thing is that, having read other books by Swamiji, the thing that comes across is his absolute conviction that what he is saying is true. It's almost inescapable that you cannot fail to accept that. And it's uplifting. It tells you you are that. You are divine. You just need to realize it. Not that that's easy, but it means that you're not a bad person. You just have to work out your true self. And so that's a change from growing up with this, you're going to hell. So it's just so different. And that's just a marvelous turning point for me. And speaking of sharks, it reminded me, I was scuba diving. We used to go scuba diving off Jervis Bay, Bowen Island. There was about 3 boatloads of scuba divers in the water. So there's lots of scuba divers everywhere. And I'm sort of swimming around this rock going, here comes this grey-nosed shark straight towards me. And it was sort of like flicking its tail and going, oh, that's not a happy shark. And it's coming towards me. You suddenly learned that you can swim backwards and chuck a turn and just get out of the way and just let it go past. And it just went, you sort of get out of the way. And the thing is that scuba divers, this is why it works with scuba divers, is they're pretty big. They're 2 meters long, mostly. They've got these big fins. They've got this thing on their back, and there's all these bubbles coming out. And most things underwater look at that and go, I don't know about this. Stay away. So you've kind of got a bit of protection in looking pretty weird yourself underwater.
Yeah, well, continuing the shark theme, as a former surfer, the sad thing about surfers are they are sitting up on the surface and they're dangling their legs.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as a shark is concerned, they think sharks help keep the ocean clean. They go after the sick fish. So they think, sick fish float up to the surface. So they think, might just go and investigate that. That looks like a sick fish up there. We used to keep that in mind in our surfing days.
I think there was always the saying was that you'd never get attacked by a shark while you're actually on air underwater, until there was one diver, I think he was a construction worker or something. He actually got attacked by a shark while he was on air underwater. That blew that safety out of the water for everybody else. But it was the only time it ever happened. So anyway, yeah, pretty weird.
So yeah, sure.
This is. I was saying this to my daughter and son-in-law last night. That in a lot of ways, Swami Vivekananda is a gateway to Vedanta. And in this book here, this is just the first page, the ideal of a universal religion. Get this for an opening. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. So how's that for an opening punchline, if you like? So you've got this sort of Christian background where you've got, God's judging, and you read that as the first thing, and you go, wow, hey, this is, I like this.
Well, so did George Harrison. That was what he read, and that was a key point for him to realize when he was searching.
Yeah, well, that was when
that really appealed to him.
I think he was with Ravi Shankar, and he sort of picks up these Swami Vivekananda books and starts reading them, and just goes, oh, wow. And he was right into the material world, and you could say he climbed to the very top of it. And then, I mean, the Beatles were just so big back then. He climbed to the top of this material world and has looked over the other side and goes, there's more to this. And a friend of mine said that when he died, it was reported that he apparently glowed. How's that?
Hadn't heard that. Oh, so, gosh, look, panelists, you got anything more you'd like to add? We've got time. There's no hurry. Especially Vivek, I think you'd prepared something. I saw you'd sent an email.
That's all right.
You've got.
I don't quite know how to go into it. I actually thought I was giving a talk, so I prepared this like a talk. And then
Well, you
realised
could
it
dip into it. I'm just mindful you've prepared something, so please share that.
Apologies for this, but anyway, so I suppose where will we start? Perhaps maybe we start off with when there is trouble. I mean, and that's probably where I first juncture. So when there's trouble or a challenging situation, I've always been able to see Swamiji, eyes closed, seemingly peacefully sitting in meditation. However, in that posturing of solitude, it takes only moments to be ushered to his true core of strength, beatitude, and love. I found the answers are almost always forthcoming over subsequent time together. We usually advance the ball and have a string of places that I would not ever have dreamt about, but which I see developing both my inner persona and also with Swamiji's words. Now, this pattern is all the more remarkable when you think about how it happens repeatedly and deeply. I mean, there are a number of things that happen in our life, and when we reflect back on them, we realize when we look back that there's actually a core and a strength that's happening and that's becoming stronger still. I think that underpins what our complex relationship is with Swamiji. And I have no doubt that members of this audience have no doubt experienced similar sorts of growth. Now, when we think back to Swamiji's life, we all know he was born on January the 12th, 1863, and passed on the 4th of July, 1902. And you think that it's only 39 years, we cannot help but be transported to a number of key events into his life. Now, one key moment in my mind occurred when he first met Sri Ramakrishna. Many of us have heard of the stories of that meeting, but I'd like to recount them. We know that Narendra was only 18 years at the time he met with Sri Ramakrishna. He entered Sri Ramakrishna's rooms with some friends and sang a few songs at his request. Ramakrishna went into samadhi listening to these songs. A few minutes later, Ramakrishna took Naren by his hand and he addressed him tenderly and spoke to him as though he knew him for a long time. And he asked him, "Why have you come so late? Why were you so unkind and made me wait for so long?" He addressed Naren as Narenya, and born on this earth to remove the misery of humanity. And Naren found in Ramakrishna's words an inner logic, a striking, sincere severity, and convincing proof of his spiritual nature. In answer to his question, "Sir, have you seen God?" Sri Ramakrishna answered, "Yes, I have seen him just as I see you here, only more intensely." Think about Sri Ramakrishna's not only seeing God, but stating that he sees him more intense than he sees either you or I sitting in front of him. Imagine the sheer gravity contained in such words. No doubt Swamiji at this point became convinced of Ramakrishna's spiritual attainment and became his most ardent devotee, the rest being history. There are a number of key teachings promoted by Swamiji, and trying to give you a glimpse into this is no easy feat. Nonetheless, I'll try and give you 3 examples. The first teaching that I wanted to capture was for mankind to persevere in one's search for God. To succeed, you must have tremendous perseverance, tremendous will. "I will drink the ocean," says the persevering soul. "At my will, mountains will crumble up." Have that sort of will. Now, we all stop and think, "Oh God, how do you drink the ocean, or how do mountains crumble?" But that's what Swamiji implores in all of us. Have that sort of will, work hard, and you will reach the goal. Arise, awake, and stop not until the goal is reached. Needless to say that when you think of likening your efforts to the ocean or mountains, Swamiji indicates a sheer determination, level of devotion that is ultimately necessary to become more advanced in this world, and that we must on all occasions strive to be bigger and bolder. The second thought I wanted to capture was to share with you a chapter from Swamiji, and this is a little bit heavier, but it's called Steps to Realization Using Jnana, and I found this most valuable. Swamiji here details systematically the path to realization. And when you think through these paths, you realize just what stands ahead of us and what we need to do to try to get there. He starts with the principles of Sharma and Dharma, explaining that to restrain the mind from wandering inward or outward, and to keep the organs in their respective centers is what is meant by these words. Sharma consists in not allowing the mind to externalize, and Dharma in checking the external instruments. Then he goes on to talk about further concepts. He talks about uparati, which consists of not thinking of things of the senses. Now, many of us here are no doubt in amongst all of these concepts, trying our level best to do what we can. But there's more. And Swami goes on to indicate that there is more. Swami talks about titiksha. He talks about that we should be doing things without any feelings of anger or hatred, without any thought of resistance. My mind must be as calm as if nothing had happened. And then only when I have gotten to that state have I attained non-resistance, and not before. Forbearance of any of all misery, without even a thought of resisting or driving it out, without even any painful feeling of the mind or any remorse. This is titiksha. Now, needless to say, you think about these concepts, and I certainly looked at that one with a lot of thinking about, well, my next goals will have to be upwards from here, but it's going to take a while. But then he continues, and then he talks about Shraddha, which is faith, one having tremendous faith in religion and God. Then he talks about samadhana, or constant practice to hold the mind in God. And then mamukshutva, the intense desire to be free. Thereafter, there is nitya viveka, discriminating between that which is true and that which is untrue, between the eternal and the transitory. God is alone and everything else is transitory, but there is one who never changes, and that is God. And the nearer we get to him, the less will be for the change for us, the less will nature be able to work on us. So I guess in highlighting all of these, I think Swamiji has very neatly portrayed the path forward, and that we realize as human beings where we fall in that pathway. The truth is that we must approach religion with reverence and with love, and our heart will stand up and say, this is truth and this is untruth, until we find God. I guess my final paragraph was to do with the Parliament of Religions, and I thought just talking a little bit about what he said there was quite powerful, if that's all right, Robert, just to wind up. We all know that this occurred between the 11th and 27th of September, 1893. I'm not sure prior to that time what the types of gatherings were that had occurred, but at this occasion, and there's this amazing footage of a picture that you see with all the leaders on stage, and you are just struck by both the diversity in what they're wearing and their ability to interrelate to each other, and what type of gathering that must have been. At this opening, and which was a watershed moment of interfaith dialogue, Swamiji said, "I'm proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I'm proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations on earth." He continues later by saying, "As the different streams have their sources in different paths, which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, or lead to thee." And I think this is in part his recollection that different religions may be necessary. We may all need our own pathway to achieve realization. Swamiji continues and says, whosoever comes to me, through whatever form I reach him, all men struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. But their time is come, and I fervently hope that the bell that tolled this morning in honor of this convention may be the death knell of all fanaticism, of all persecutions with the sword or with the pen, and of all uncharitable feelings between persons wending their way to the same goal. Such beautiful words that are a most poignant expression demonstrate not only Swamiji's advanced communication understanding, but demonstrate to the world the very issues and resolute standing we need to stand tall and forge through this path forever. Obviously, I speak of Swamiji with tremendous respect, strength, and love. And as we celebrate his birthday today and admire the qualities of love and leadership, I'm grateful that at least I share in part his name, but more importantly, the ability to try and be better, which is what he's always taught us about.
Thanks very much, Vivek. Yeah.
Just briefly, there was somewhere in that book, and I went looking for it and I couldn't find it, but I thought one of the most telling things was that everybody is, well, we're all potentially divine, but I think somewhere he said that anyone who says you're not spiritual was the greatest blasphemy. And I just couldn't find exactly where it was, but I can recall that so clearly. And I just thought, wow, how much of that difference is that? Is that we're all, back to the analogy of the bicycle wheel, is the hub, is the realization. We're all, this voice drawing us all there. And that there are people who could be actively working in the opposite direction to try and not do that, but we're all going there. It's just that some of us will take longer, but we'll all get there, which is so much better than being told you're going to be consigned to hell. It's got to be a huge difference. And the other thing about facing the brute, it helps. It helped me when I was doing all of expert reports, and you're going to court and you're being cross-examined, and that's in some ways facing the brute, because some of them somebody said that sort of the legal system in New South Wales is like contact sport. They'll go for the person, don't worry about the evidence, just nail the person and try and rubbish them. So you've got to stand up to that, and that's facing the brute. Or jobs that you go, I don't want to go near this. Then you go, what do? You just go, right, like don the rubber suit and sort of just do your job. That's what you're there. You got to do this job. You do it impartially and just do it. And a lot of from Vedanta has allowed me to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Look, I just wanted to mention that I'll confess, I have not read the big literature in our order. I'll confess I do not stick rigorously to the practices prescribed. But what I have found that has deeply impacted me throughout my life has actually been holy company and spending time with the Matajis. And I think when we're thinking of Swami Vivekananda, we shouldn't forget that Swamiji's great mission in life was to uplift people well after his passing. And he did that by, starting the order and also disseminating his ideals. And I find the more that time I spend with the Matajis, they are living embodiments of Swamiji's teachings. You can learn so much from just being in their company. And I've been very, very fortunate that, like Vivek, I've grown up with this center actually. I used to listen to the talks here, playing under, well, there were different seats back then, but playing under these seats, when I was 4 or 5 years old. And being with the Matajis, you see the parallels with Swamiji's teachings. For example, Ajay Prana Mataji, Gayatri Prana Mataji, almost in mirroring in a way what Swamiji did, they left India many years ago, they traveled to a foreign land on the other side of the world where they didn't really know what they were going to face. Gayatri Prana Mataji especially had not been to Australia, I think, before. And even it was just hearsay from what they heard from other people. And it was a different society, different culture, different food. We definitely didn't have the variety of the multicultural food they had back then. Poor Matajis. And no offense to Western cuisine, but you need some spices. And you know, they had nothing but the well wishes and the common goal of the lovely devotees that they met here and helped them. And what did they come here for? They came only to help us. They could have easily become monastics and, you know, hold themselves away in a cave or a forest somewhere in the beautiful Himalayas, but they're here every day only for upliftment. And I encourage you, look, I'm young, but use this resource we have. As Sri Ramakrishna says, holy company is a huge, huge, powerful tool that you have. And we have Swamiji's living, breathing teachings with us. Spend time with them, talk with them, you know, discuss with them, test them as Swamiji did Sri Ramakrishna when he was young. And you will find yourself amazed. And I personally find a great peace whenever I'm with them. For me, it's like visiting a beautiful forest or a calm place or a temple or something. I get that same peace when I'm with the Mataji. So I encourage all of us non-monastics to exploit that opportunity that we have with the Matajis here. Thank you.
Thanks, Arushi. I think we'll have to wind up the panel now. I'll just make some, well, I'll share one of my turning points briefly related to Swami Vivekananda. I did a meditation course a long time ago when I first came across Vedanta. And the teacher, Yvonne Malik, who was our member for many years, she really had an excellent course, an excellent introduction. And it had a reading list. And in the reading list, there were quite a few books published by Ramakrishna Order. And one of the books was selections from Swami Vivekananda. Somehow I read all the other books in the list, and that book stayed. I remember it was sitting on my bedside table, and I don't know why I didn't feel like reading it. It just sat there. I didn't know much about Swami Vivekananda. Anyway, one day I decided, no, to be true to the course, I must read every book. And so then I sat in a park out at Castle Hill, where I was living at that time. And I started reading one of the lectures from the Parliament of Religions. And somehow, when I came to the point in his talk where he declared something that's a very familiar idea to people who study Eastern philosophy, or for anyone from India, he declared, we are heirs to immortal bliss. And that really, really hit me. I was surprised. And I guess it was partly because I'd been through a pretty tough time. So this was like a promise that everything's going to work out all right in the end, okay? Just stick with it. And also, I knew, I mean, we had the concept growing up of heaven. So if you were good, then everything would work out all right for you in that case. But in this case, I knew the context was, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done, what tradition, what faith you're in. It doesn't matter. Whatever it be, this is waiting for you. You've got an inheritance. Like inheritances, it's not easy to access. You're going to have to wait for it. It's going to only come to you under certain special conditions, but there's no escaping it. So I remember that really made me sit up. It just that I kind of fully captured the meaning of the full impact of that. So anyway, with those concluding comments, I think we'd like to thank the panel for agreeing to participate and sharing their thoughts. It's been a very interesting session. And now we'll move on to the next item in the program. And that will be the PowerPoint and speech presentation by Pravrajika Alokaprana. She's visiting us again. We're very honored to have her here with us. She's the Assistant Secretary of Sri Sarada Matri Bhavan Hospital in Kolkata, doing wonderful work, especially for the poorer women, looking after them and their children. And her presentation is going to be on the central idea of Vedanta in daily life, applying Vedanta to the ideal of service, work as worship. Sorry? And yeah. Okay. Sorry. I've missed the main heading. Actually, I've been talking about what's in there. 125 years of Ramakrishna mission, ideals and practice as envisioned by Swami Vivekananda, and as I was saying, it's talking about applying service with Vedanta. All right. So now we'll just get set up for the talk.
With my humble pranams to Sri Sri Thakkar, Sri Ma, and Swamiji, I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to Pravrajika Gayatri Pranaji for inviting me to Sydney, and I'm glad I've been given another opportunity to meet all of you. And I would also like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to the devotees of Australia, that is from Sydney, Newcastle, and Adelaide. The reason being, as Robert had said, Sarada runs a hospital in Calcutta, which is nearly going to be 75 years old, and basically running a hospital in India and moreover in Calcutta West Bengal is extremely difficult because it is a charitable institution fully dependent on donations. From the time that I have been coming to Sydney and meeting all of you, it is not the donations that I'm speaking about, but the encouragement and the inspiration that all of you have given me is really worthwhile speaking about. Why? Because I realized I basically have a Western influence because basically my adolescent period was spent in UK. But as Fred was saying, one is always attracted to India. So every year I used to go to India, and in the end, I joined the order. But when one does a very difficult project as running a hospital, and coming to Sydney, what I have found, and with the very warm reception I got from Gayatri Mataji, is I found out that we all belong to one big family. So your encouragement, your prayers, your best wishes, good wishes helps me a lot to run the hospital. Because at times of difficulty, I just think what you people think, how are you doing in Australia, in other parts of the world? And I feel encouraged, yes, we are helping the poor people. Swami Vivekananda also depended a lot on the West. He learned a lot from the West, which he imparted to the Asian countries, India, and the mission is one of it. The ideas came from abroad, from UK. So here again, my thanks to all of you. And not only that, the hospital is improving in the sense it was basically only a mother and child hospital. Now it is covering all departments for mother and child. And moreover, the health department has also requested us now to teach nurses and also doctors in the medical profession. So we have got a college of nursing, plus we have training technicians, and we are also looking forward to training doctors. We are not a medical college, but because of the standard of the hospital and the training facilities and the doctors and staff involved, the health department themselves have come forward and requested us to do so. And just now when I go back, I will start the ITU with a new dialysis unit. So your prayers and your encouragement and your best wishes go a long way, because Gayatri Pranji keeps in touch with me, and also Robert, and gives very, very encouraging and inspiring advice and encouragement. Thank you. Now, the topic for today is 125 years of the Ramakrishna mission, ideals and practice as envisioned by Swami Vivekananda. This is not actually a lecture. I do not believe in lectures. I believe in exchanging ideas. When we exchange ideas, what happens is that we think over these ideas and we ourselves cogitate and think, how can we rationalize on these ideas and how do we make it part and parcel of our life? Now, considering the Ramakrishna mission, it is actually 125 years of its existence has just been completed. So you will think, for a person who is 125 years old, it's quite an age. But in the sense of Ramakrishna mission, is a fledgling. Now, Swami Vivekananda said the spiritual impact that has come to Belur Math will last 1,500 years, and it will be a great university. Do not think I imagine it, I see it. So what does that mean? It means that we are only seeing the dawn. But the sun rises, and when it actually develops and progresses, the amount of changes and developments that will occur globally, one will be really startled, because the whole of humanity is going through a very difficult period. So it is this calming influence that is very necessary globally for, through the Ramakrishna movement, the ideals of Swami Vivekananda and his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, will percolate all over the globe. And you can see it is they who are doing their work. We are only instruments in their hand. Now, before I go on to the next slide, what is surprising is, once regarding the Ramakrishna mission, the amount of problem that Swami Vivekananda had to get the Ramakrishna mission as a foundation and start it was extremely difficult, because Sri Ramakrishna sadhana, he went through the traditional procedure of sadhana. 12 years of strict spirituality and doing sadhana. At the end of his 12 years of sadhana, he was going in and out of samadhi, at the end of which he realized, and he taught it to Swami Vivekananda also, that God is real. God can be realized, and the purpose of life is to realize God. And God is immanent in every human being. And finally, all the religions are different pathways to realize God. So these were the four main from his sadhana that he managed to establish. And these were the truths that Swami Vivekananda wanted to spread all over the world, but it was with great difficulty. Now we will find out how this mission foundation was brought about. Now you can see here Sri Sarada Devi. Now, before I talk about Sri Sarada Devi, as I told you, she was a very, very, very important guiding influence and a stabilizer of the Ramakrishna movement. During the time that Swamiji, after his travels in the West, and he came back to India to establish the Ramakrishna movement, the mission, he had a lot of opposition. Even his own brother disciples, they themselves were against it. One day, actually they call it an institutionalized religion. Why do you call it an institutionalized religion? Because once you have an organization, there is certain strict disciplines of the organization, because there are many, many people involved. It is not me going into solitary and doing my sadhana the way I want to do my sadhana. But here, when you belong to an organization, there are strict disciplines and rules one has to follow. And so you can see one fine morning, you can see Latu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutanandaji Maharaj walking out of the order. And Naren asking, because he cannot even mention Naren properly. He calls him Lorraine. So Naren tells to Latu Maharaj, where are you going? So he says, I'm leaving because it's very difficult. According to the Ganta means according to the ring, the bell, I have to sit for meditation. And I'm not in such a high level that my mind will immediately sit for meditation whenever the bell rings, because it takes time for me to settle down. So I find that difficult. Then there's another bell for exercise. There's another bell for breakfast. So he says, I find it very difficult to acclimatize to all your bells. So I'm leaving the order and I will go into solitary and I will do my own sadhana. Then Swami Vivekananda felt, yes, these are the stalwarts of the order. So he himself said, no, Latu, you will stay here. You follow your own system. Don't worry, you don't have to follow any of these rules. Then we find later on also, many people approached Holy Mother with their doubts. But before I go there are so many generations of sadhus who have joined the order. They also have their doubt. At that time, the stalwarts of the order were not present. That is the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, as you can say, because the mission was established in the society, people like us, before we joined the order, had the opportunity to meet with highly spiritual individuals who would have been in the Himalayas, and we would not have any contact with them. So here you find out that there's an interesting incident I read in an article where there was a very responsible, erudite sadhu in the generations following the stalwarts of the order. He had many important responsibilities and he was very, very keen to have God vision, but was very much disheartened because he could not get it. And he believed that the Ramakrishna Math preaches a religion which is institutionalized. So he left the order and he went into very severe sadhana to realize God. He returned to Belur Math. And when the monks questioned him, he said, I prayed fervently to Sri Ramakrishna and pleaded with him, O Lord, tell me emphatically if you and the Ramakrishna mission are two distinct entities. Don't forget here, whenever one earnestly prays to God, and here I mean earnestly praying to God, that prayer is answered. You don't have to be a monk. You can be a householder, you can be an ordinary person, but an earnest prayer to God does not go unanswered. So when he put everything and begged and prayed to Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna answered him and he said that if Sri Ramakrishna told that the answer was yes, that they were two distinct entities, then he told the monks, I would not have come back. But Sri Ramakrishna said, how is that possible? Myself and the mission are one and the same. And it is through the mission that I work. Now, this gives us a lot of encouragement because we need something to hold on to, values to hold on to. Now, when we come to the Holy Mother, what basically happens here, all incarnations of God the world over, they have come and they spread their message on their own. But with Sri Ramakrishna, you will know that the Holy Mother, the spiritual consort, was given a lot of responsibility. After his passing away for 32 years, Holy Mother guided the Ramakrishna mission as the Sangha Janani. Now, Sri Ramakrishna himself, from the very beginning, he knew the role that Holy Mother had to take. So Being his first disciple, he taught her everything. And at the first instance also, he had asked her, since you are married to me, if you want me to come down to the earthly plane, I am willing. But Holy Mother, a highly spiritual person, said, I'm not here for that. I have come here to help you with your spiritual life. And that she did on an exemplary role. Now, regarding Holy Mother, he taught her everything, and also he made her go through certain spiritual experiences, and in knowing that in future many disciples will come under her guidance. And you can see here, on the day of Phalaharini Kali Puja, he does the Shodashi Puja. This he did in his room. You'll be very surprised. Holy Mother is the personification of modesty. She is a very, very shy person. Hardly does anybody know her presence in Dakshineshwar. Then on one day, he asked her to be present in his room so that Shodashi Puja can be done. She came to his room to sit on the seat where the worshipped will be seated in a semi-samadhi condition. She sat down, and then it was Sri Ramakrishna who worshipped her, the traditional way of worshipping. And he says, O Mother Tripura Sundari, who art the controller of all powers, open the door to perfection. Purify her, the Holy Mother, body and mind, and manifest thyself in her and be beneficent. The puja took the whole course, and at the end, you will see that both the worshipper and the worshipped became perfectly identified in samadhi. We are talking of something that it's very difficult for us to imagine. Returning to the semi-conscious state, Sri Ramakrishna offered himself to the Devi. She's now the Devi, Tripura Sundari Devi. He gave forever at the lotus feet of the Devi the results of his sadhana. The results of his sadhana for the last 12 years, intense sadhana, which has never, this is the first time in the history of religions that this type of sadhana has been done by an incarnation, because all religions were practiced. The results of his sadhana, his rosary, everything he dedicated at her feet and saluted her. That means Holy Mother was now the mother of the universe. She had gained all the spiritual strength for which Sri Ramakrishna had practiced sadhana. Now, what we will say is, what was the purpose? What was the purpose of Sri Ramakrishna making Holy Mother an embodiment of the Divine Mother? Actually, Sri Ramakrishna wanted Holy Mother. Her role was to enlighten the world immersed in the darkness of ignorance and to play a prominent part in the spread of the organization. Sri Ramakrishna used to call Holy Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And Holy Mother herself stated that Sri Ramakrishna left her behind to manifest the motherhood of God to the world. You might be all asking, why motherhood of God to the world? Actually, this is the first time that motherhood of God to the world has been shown through the incarnation of Sri Ramakrishna. Because when we are in problem, we are in trouble, you will find that we always run to our mothers and we pour out our heart to our mother and say, this is the problem, that is the problem. And then somehow we get a very soothing relief after talking with our mother. In the same way, you will find out that Holy Mother occupied that position. And many people went to Holy Mother to ask her how to sort out their problems. And you will be very surprised that nowadays people are looking for Holy Mother, not so much Thakkar, Holy Mother, because you'll be very surprised to see at one point, it's just a little diversion, Robert, is that at one point I was asked to go by the health department to the state medical faculty. And then there we were the first for getting interviews for technicians. The government had chosen the first group and the private sector of the hospitals were given the second chance. So I was there, then I said, I'm very new. I have to get 16. They said, it's okay, you can profess about your institution. So I said, my God, who will know our institution? Because we are very quiet, we are not very vociferous. So I just sat quietly and they said, from time to time, you talk about your institution. So, and all of these people are coming from rural Bengal. Then I was there and suddenly one lady and her husband came running towards me. We had a little leaflet. I was a little taken aback. Then there was a picture of Thakur, Ma and Swamiji. Ma is in the central position. Then they told me, does she run the center? I said, who? I was a little surprised. Who? This lady in the center. Does she run your organization? So I was so taken aback. I said, yes, she runs the organization. We run it according to her. Then this lady disappeared. She disappeared. She went to the main office and in 10 minutes, she came back to me. I was really flabbergasted. She says, don't worry, I booked my daughter in your hospital. Mani, just Holy Mother was enough. I just didn't have to open my mouth. So I was thinking, my goodness, we are representatives of Holy Mother, so we should behave a little bit better and be more polite. Now, once we come, now Holy Mother had realized one thing, that Sri Ramakrishna came, he preached a whole lot of things. There were a very good group of stalwart disciples, direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, who were all not Jivan Muktas, they were Ishvara Kotis, Brahma Vidya. They were very highly evolved spiritual souls. So when she found that after the Mahasamadhi of Sri Ramakrishna, when they were aimlessly wandering around, she felt very bad. When she went to Varanasi and saw the monasteries in Gaya, she thought to herself, what is going to happen to our monks? Then she worshipped Sri Ramakrishna and said, those who leave the world in your name may never be in need of bare subsistence. They will all live together, holding to your ideas and ideals, and people afflicted with the worries of the world will resort to them and be solaced by hearing about you. That's why you came. So in a way, Holy Mother was the originator of the Ramakrishna Mission Organization, because it was after that her prayer was answered and the mission unofficially started to settle down. Baranago, Mata and all that. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Oh, there's a lot to this thing. I thought I was going to have up to one, isn't it? So, okay. Now, Holy Mother, actually, she encouraged a whole lot, whatever Swami Vivekananda wanted regarding the mission. And she herself was very much encouraged by the work that was done in Kasi Shevashram. And you can see at the bottom, she also gave a 10 rupee note because she saw that the work that was going on was all Sri Ramakrishna's work. Swami Vivekananda was doing Sri Ramakrishna's work. Actually, even Sri Ramakrishna, although he was very much in samadhi and following the traditional way of spirituality, he also, because actually all these people had touched the universal soul. So when he was going to Kashi through Diogar, he saw the suffering humanity. And then he told Matranath Bishwash, I am not going further unless you help these people who are in poverty. So this is what he basically did. Then when we come, Narendranath came to Sri Ramakrishna in the year 1880. Here from here, you can see that Narendranath is one of the Saptarishis. And as you have already read, he actually is the sage Nara, who is part of Narayana. And when he came down, Sri Ramakrishna taught him all the precepts that he had got from his spiritual sadhana, so that Swami Vivekananda can actually spread the message for which he came. Now, one very important thing was when he was there, previous slide. Actually, one very important thing is that when he was teaching his direct disciples, Sri Ramakrishna was mentioning the tenets of the Vaishnava religion, that is love of God's name, service to the devotees of the Vaishnavas, and compassion for all embodied beings. Hearing the word compassion, Sri Ramakrishna went into samadhi and he said, man is an insignificant worm crawling on earth, and he to show compassion to others, not compassion, but service to all, recognizing them as God's manifestation and serve them. Now, this is the main theme of practical Vedanta. So Swami Vivekananda, when he went out of the room, he says, I have learned something very, very important today, and I will spread it to the whole of humanity. This is where practical Vedanta comes. After which now Sri Ramakrishna goes, or after the Mahasamadhi of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda wanders the whole of India. What are the two main defects he sees is the extreme poverty of the masses, and number two, the neglect of the women. And he, with all the sufferings, he obviously being a Maharishi, he identified himself with mankind to such an extent that no sense of separateness existed. He became one with the universal soul. When you become one with the universal soul, what does that mean? Actually, it means that you feel the pain of others. That is what one is supposed to aspire for. What does practical Vedanta mean? The Atman that is within me, the soul that is within me, that same soul is also in you. Otherwise, I cannot serve you properly. And in the sense of Swami Vivekananda, he had identified himself with the cosmic soul. So one day you find him in Belur Math in the middle of the night, walking up and down. Then Swami Vivekananda Maharaj heard a noise. He came out and he says, "What is the problem? What is troubling you?" He said, "Peshan." He calls him Peshan. "Peshan, I cannot sleep. Somewhere in the world, there has been a huge calamity." He couldn't rest that night. Next day, exactly at that moment, there was a huge calamity in another part of the world where thousands of people had died. So this is where they feel the pain. They feel the pain of the soul that is suffering. They have identified. Even here you see a lady is carrying a heavy load. She falls down, serious injuries to her ribs. Swamiji also felt that excruciating pain and could not move. So here you will actually see that you'll be surprised actually, even Sri Ramakrishna the same. When he was in Dakshineshwar, he was most of the time in Dakshineshwar. Two people were fighting, boatmen were fighting on the river Ganga, and the strike of those boatmen hitting each other was on the back of on his back. So they all have that universal connection with the cosmos, universal soul. So here, what are they saying? After all this, it is the oneness, the unity in diversity. We have to show ourselves as the one unity in this diverse universe. So Swami Vivekananda said, renunciation, that is Tyaga and service, Seva, must be the twin ideals of India's regeneration. So he goes to after which he gets an opportunity in 1893 to go to the Parliament of Religions. And it was here that he actually gave the ideals of practical Vedanta and also Raja, Jnana, Bhakti, and Karma Yoga. These are the main practical philosophies of what is represented in the Ramakrishna mission. But moreover is that he saw that organization setups that are in the Western countries are very good. In the sense, he wanted to preserve the legacy of Sri Ramakrishna and also to function efficiently towards serving the society in achieving spiritual and secular excellence. So he wanted to do an organization. So in May 1897, on his return from abroad, he actually starts he actually just going back here is that when he was abroad and these practical Vedanta and the yogas, you will find out he was actually a voice without a form. Each time he's emphasizing one thing. You're not the body, you're not the mind. You are that infinite, eternal, ever perfect spirit. All power is within you. You can do anything and everything. And he said that the central idea of Vedanta can be practiced in daily life by applying the ideal of service. That is, work is worship. And work can only become worship when I can identify myself with the person to whom I am worshiping. In the case of a hospital, it is the patient. And whatever the patient is, you must know that you're serving the divine in that form. So he says, the poor, the illiterate, the ignorant, the afflicted, let these be your God. Know that the service to these alone is the highest religion. Then he says, one must have a principle by which one guides our own life, because life is short. The vanities of the world are transient, but they alone live who live for the others. The rest are more dead than alive. Then you come to this also, that he also has a lot of emphasis on the condition of women, and he feels unless women are improved, it is not possible for a bird to fly on one wing. So his ideal at the end is practical Vedanta. To serve Jiva is to serve Shiva, God. Now we come to the foundation of the Ramakrishna mission, and it was in 1st May 1897 that Swamiji convened a meeting of the monastic and lay disciples in Balaram Basu's house. And it was called the Ramakrishna mission because it was after the name of Sri Ramakrishna, from whose ideal they had given up their life for his service. And the aim of the Sangha was to preach the truths which Sri Ramakrishna has for the good of humanity, preached and demonstrated in his whole life, and to help others also to put these truths in their own life. And what was the motto? The motto was Atmana Mokshatam Jagat Hitaya Cha. He says, you can see a picture of Belur Math, liberation of the self through doing good to the world, knowing that the world is also a manifestation of the divine. So actually this was called Sheva Yoga, which is being practiced in all the centers of the Ramakrishna mission. Now, when doing Sheva Yoga, one thing one must realize is that the Ramakrishna mission is not a social service organization, not an ordinary NGO, because while performing the service, every person, both monastic and householders, are mindful that they are not merely performing an act of social service, but are serving God in the form of the hungry, the illiterate, and the depressed. In turn, we are deifying our life with the highest blessings. That is the reason when we get an opportunity to serve somebody, we do not think that they should be grateful to us. On the other hand, we say we should be grateful to you for giving us the opportunity of purifying ourselves. There are so many mission activities going on in the Ramakrishna mission with the Sheva attitude through education, technical training, medical service, relief work, so many. Now, it is not out of the thing to just do a little this one, because I wanted to mention that it's not out of place here to mention. Just one moment, the previous slide. It is not out of this thing to mention here that Swamiji's dream was to start a woman's math with Holy Mother as the central figure, so that once again Brahmavadins like Matri and Gagi of the Vedic period will appear. Why? Because, just one moment, because what he found, that with 500 motivated men, it will take me 50 years to transform India. But with 50 motivated women, it may take only few years. This is such a strong confidence he had on women. And he has said, Mother, that is Holy Mother, has been born to revive that wonderful Shakti in India. And making her the nucleus, once more will Gagis and Maitris be born into the world. And we were very, very fortunate that in 1953, Although during Swamiji's lifetime, Sri Sarada Math did not come into existence, but on the centenary celebration of Holy Mother in 1953, the authorities of Belur Math took the responsibility of gathering a group of dedicated women from all over India, and Sri Sarada Math and later Ramakrishna Sarada Mission came to existence. That is, the same ideals as enunciated by Swami Vivekananda, but only financially and legally we are independent. He insisted on that. Swami Vivekananda insisted that we have to be independent of the men's organization, although we are on the same ideals. Here you can see a picture of Belur Math on this side and Sarada Math on the other side. And as Swami Vivekananda wanted, brahmacharis and sadhus will be trained in the Math Belur Math, and in the other Math also brahmacharis and sadhvis will be trained. And it should be an independent monastic order for women. Now the guiding force you will find in Sarada Math and Ramakrishna Sarada Mission are central in all our shrines. You will see Holy Mother as the central figure, and then Thakkar and Swamiji on either side with the same motto, Atmana Mokshatam Jagat Hitaya Cha. We have around 33 centers in India, and outside India, 2 centers, one in Australia and one in Sri Lanka. And same services, education, medical service, rural and urban, upliftment, relief work, spread of cultural and spiritual ideas, work outside India. This is for mainly women and children, and we concentrate on empowerment of women. You can see the same thing, education, medical service, women's empowerment, relief work. Now, when we come, I'll quickly go through the main points. Now, what is the practical implications of the Ramakrishna mission? When we come to the practical implication, it is actually the manifestation of the potential divinity within the soul. In the process, either you're a householder or you are a monastic member. I am working in the mission or out of the mission, helping the mission, but in the process, I am trying to manifest the divinity within me through service. So you can find out that there are 3 things that Swami Vivekananda implemented in his Ramakrishna mission. First, spiritual, moral, and social development of the common people. Then second is the emancipation of the masses. And third is the spiritual heritage. Now, in a shortened form, I will tell you, when he wanted the spiritual, moral, and social development of the people, what did he want? When you see the rapid advancement of science, what do you find? Increase in the evils of the struggle of power, oppression of the weak, and exploitation of the poor. The Ramakrishna mission, you will find there's no specific religion, but value-based education is rampant in the sense that many youth are taught how to be responsible and caring human beings, infused with the strength and vigor to develop the attributes of purity, patience, and perseverance, so that they may dedicate their ideals towards unselfishness, that is renunciation, and seva. Then you have the emancipation of women and the masses. Ramakrishna mission basically has achieved this primarily through social and economic condition improvement by providing food, clothing, basic health services, and massive relief programs. Also, educational institutions, skill development programs, and vocational training schools have been established, and many women are encouraged to join these organizations. They basically run free, so that you cannot say, because I have no money, I cannot join these setups. Even we ourselves have started some of these free courses. Then he has found out that due to centuries of social oppression and servitude, masses of India have lost all sense of self-respect. So here, religion in the thing of our spiritual heritage, he feels that apart from talking about religion, reviving the life-giving message of the scriptures and spreading them among the masses. This is very important. Moreover, you will find that this they have done, and Sri Ramakrishna in his sadhana has said, so many paths, so many religions, so many paths for each individual to evolve. So the society has been created by the Ramakrishna mission as a mode of service as worship. And you will find that the Ramakrishna mission, you'll be surprised, although as I told you, there was a lot of opposition, it is very surprising that it was Swamiji who took the initiative to bring the sadhus, the rishis, I would call them the rishis, who are actually in the Himalayas. They do not come down. They only come down during very, very holy occasions, and that's very rare. So people, the ordinary people, do not have any interaction with them. But thanks to Swamiji's ideal of the Ramakrishna mission, people like us can contact the sadhus or the matajis, and then we can interact with them and find out what are these highly philosophical ideals, how can they be brought down to my individual practical level. So it was that Swamiji wanted a collective liberation, not liberation for an individual. He wanted that collective liberation. Now, you'll be very surprised to know, all of you will be, since you're devotees, you're already impressed by the Ramakrishna mission. But the recognition of the activities of the Ramakrishna mission globally is very interesting, because one thing is that when Swami Vivekananda was wandering around as an itinerant monk, he was surprised when he went to Rishikesh and listening that the sadhus that were doing their own sadhana were falling ill and were in a very bad predicament. So he asked his disciple Kalyananda and later on Swami Nishchayananda to start a hospital and to serve the sick monks. So they followed whatever Swami Vivekananda had said, and they started serving these sadhus. But in the community of sadhus, they were not respected. Because why? They were called scavenger swamis, because they were running a hospital and they washed and cleaned the dirt of the sick themselves. But later, the mahant of the sadhus, they said that these are the really proper sadhus, because they are doing seva to the Atman. And later they were recognized by the community, and Ramakrishna mission monks were respected for their selfless service. This was an indirect recognition of the activities of the Ramakrishna mission. Another very interesting incident occurred is that when Swami Lokeshwaranandaji Maharaj, he went abroad, he was invited to European countries. He was at one time the secretary of the Institute of Culture, Ramakrishna Mission. Then he went to pay his respects to Pope John Paul II in Rome. And since he knew that the head of the Vatican was the object of great veneration of 1/3 of the people of the world, so he did not mention that he belonged to the Ramakrishna order, or did he mention the Ramakrishna mission? He only said to the Pope that he belongs to an order of monks, which is the smallest, youngest, and poorest in the world. So long the Pope was seated, but he stood up and said to Swami Lokeshwarananda, Swami, I know you belong to the Ramakrishna mission. It is true, you are the smallest, you are the youngest, and you are the poorest order of monks in the world. But spiritually, you are the most powerful order of monks today. I think that is the highest this thing, because spiritually an organization survives if it is spiritually strong. Finally, let us remember that Sri Ramakrishna's incarnation was an incarnation of humility. So let us remember that Sri Ramakrishna is the nature of love in which there is no expectation, no demand. Only he wants to give us, help us, enrich us, serve us, and even worship us to make us realize that we too are Brahman like him. This is the essence of the Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna mission, and to disseminate this knowledge and light of spiritual wisdom throughout the world. This is this thing, that the more you become unselfish, your heart gets purified, and you will realize your own inherent divine nature, which pervades all beings. Now, at the end of 125 years, the recognition by the central government, you can see Belur Math postage stamp and coin. The rupee 125 coin was released just recently by the central government. The world has recognized the value of this message of Sri Ramakrishna today, and following this message, India as well as the world will rise to an unimaginable height. Our prayer to the Holy Trio to shower their choicest blessings and guide us all to achieve this end. Thank you.
So our thanks to Pravrajika Alokaprana for a presentation. Apart from all of this, I know it means a lot to the nuns stationed here, to have any visiting nuns from India. Big support for them. Nice time for them. So we're happy for them as well that you could be here. And certainly wishing you'll be visiting us again and again. Yeah. And thanks to the panelists.
A big thanks for all the people who help in cooking, because it's a very great help. And thank you. And maybe you can do some helping in washing up afterwards. Not much, just a little. Thank you. And please go and have your lunch soon.
Just a few announcements. We now have launching into all our regular activities. So this coming Friday night will be the Friday night discussion. You can come here either in person or attend via Zoom. It'll be the spiritual evening theme from 7:30. Come at 7 if you like for the silent meditation. Always most welcome. So it alternates. 1 week it's spiritual evening. A particular book we'll be studying. The alternate Friday night will be Bhagavad Gita. We'll be continuing study of that. Then Next Sunday will be the monthly talk on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna by Gayatri Pranaji. And the following Sunday, the 18th, we will have a new series of talks, a monthly series of talks given by Pravrajika Sridhara Pranaji on self-knowledge, Shankaracharya's Atmabodha. Quite simple verses, not as technical as Shankaracharya can be. So we believe you can tap into that well, and it'll include time for questions and answers. So now, without delay, we invite you to stay back and have some lunch before you depart. Thanks very much for coming in such numbers today.